Hello, good evening, good morning, good afternoon. You can see there are a few people in the chat here. So cool to see. Just if you're watching, you can just say where you are and get chatting in the side there. I'm in central Germany. Summer has come. It's quite warm here now. Oh, I'll turn off my notifications and switch my camera. And we'll just, maybe for now, we'll just put this wonderful photo we have of Soya away. Hello, here I am. Stina's here, Beata, Shannon, Nikira, Tom, wow, all these, Jen, Hilda, Tanya, so many, so wonderful seeing friends here. Looking forward to drawing with you today. I've been making some wild rose petal ink. Oh, Carol, good morning from Brisbane. I'm very impressed and amazed that you're up and watching at this time already. My parents live in South Australia, and I'm sure they're still asleep. Hi Fergie from Colorado. Stefan is here, awesome to have you here, hello. Cindy, Karen, Deborah. In the middle of a thunderstorm. We had some wonderful rain today, always so thankful when it rains. So good for the plants, so good for us. Sketchy, thank you for the opportunity to host and be here and draw together. Steve from Israel, hello. And Catherine from Richmond. Hi Jill, Arizona's arrived. Cool, it's great to have you here. So this is the halfway point of the Ink Naturally course for the initial round. It's going to continue, people can go at their own pace, but at the moment the lessons are being released live 3 times a week. And yeah, so now we've had our line work and focus on shadow, and in the coming week we'll be focusing on edge quality and edge control. So I've chosen a reference photo to work from today, which I think is super challenging for the time frame that we have. But we're going to just, as always in these 1 hour sessions, stay pretty loose and experiment a bit with edge control. And there's just some really lovely subtle things happening. And I'm going to work predominantly with my an Elder pen that I cut today. It's a nice broad edge pen, so we'll see how this one works. Haven't used it yet. And rose petal ink. The wild roses here, they just smell amazing and they're so bright, and it's just such a beautiful rosy time of year. In our neighbour's rose garden there are roses everywhere, and it's great. Some of these roses we can use to make ink with. So last year I tried making ink from white roses and it just looked like dirty dishwater. So I don't know, that wasn't really much of a success, but it was worth trying out. But these lovely hedge roses, wild roses, they have such an intense smell and such a vibrant pink colour. So it's going to be fun now working with them, with you together. Has anyone else here working with some homemade ink that they've been making over the past weeks? It's so cool to see what everyone's been doing in the group, in the Ink Naturally class. People were experimenting with so many different things that I haven't even told you about. So it's really cool to see people getting curious and trying things out, and it's so inspiring just to see what everyone's doing and that everyone's kind of infected, I guess, with the same curiosity and passion of making ink that I know so well. It's just so fun to get into ink making. And for those of you not working with your own inks, that's also totally fine. Shannon's got blueberry ink, that's great. Is Hilda the only one hearing an echo? Before I launch into this. No echo, Fergie, thank you. Hi Andrea, or Andrea. Christina, beet ink in Oregon, excellent. The beet ink is so cool. Yeah, beetroot juice, be able to use it as long as you can. With my beetroot ink that I made, I noticed the less fresh it was, it got darker and darker. So the oxidization of the beetroot ink is like turning it into a darker brown color, which is interesting. So it's fresh on the paper, it's really vibrant and pink, and as it ages, it gets a bit browner. Estina has her scavenged rose petal ink, excellent. Hi David from Santa Fe. Cindy, yeah, locate more items. I'm sure as you start getting into it, you're going to find things in the wild or in the supermarket. I made some cherry tree bark ink this week from a fallen cherry tree that died a couple of years ago in the forest, and that's a great. Yeah, you can use tree barks from. Don't go stripping the bark from any living trees, but if someone happens to have cut a tree down or the storms knocked one down, then there's ink supplies there. So yeah, there's a bunch of people telling me lots of things. Peony and poppy, sumac ink, which is also awesome. Maybe it didn't work out because of the caterpillar larvae, Beata. Onion skin, Annette, yeah, cool. Rhododendron and spiderwort. I don't know what that is. Spiderwort. That sounds pretty cool. Okay, so since we're on the topic of rose petal ink today, and that's what I'm using, I don't know if it was less intense than this. I can imagine maybe it was too light. This is a really vibrant pink, but sometimes you can reduce the if you let the water evaporate, then you'll get a more intense ink. And if you add lemon juice, you shift the pH value, and that may kind of enliven it a bit. I saw Deborah just said she tried foxglove ink. Watch out for poisonous plants. Foxglove is poisonous, so everybody make sure you look up the plants you're working with, and if you've got kids around, try to avoid poisonous plants and take care of yourselves. People look at you strange when you go foraging. A few weeks back, I was foraging in the car park of the police station nearby because I saw all the maple blossoms had fallen, and I was like, oh, there was just so many of them. So I was in the police car park, scratching around, filling up paper bags with maple petals, and then a police officer came out and he's like, what are you doing in our car park? It's like, I'm collecting maple blossoms. Okay, and then he just went back in. So don't worry about people looking at you strange, just go for it and you'll find wonderful things. Yeah, it's just fun to get out and forage, and if you're taking things from people's gardens, you might want to ask them first. So here we have Sawyer. She can't be with us today, she's working. She's a photographer and esthetician. Check out her Instagram account at Sawyer W, SAWYER W. Yeah, she has some really stunning photography, and on Sketchy she's got a lot of photos, and so she'll be our muse for today. And I'll swap this around. So as I mentioned, it's quite a complex photo, I think, to work from, because it has so many interesting things happening in there. I'll just bring this over here so I can tell you what I'm talking about, since we're on the topic of edge control. We've got this like hard shadow of the nose, and as the face curves around, we've got this really soft edge of shadow. So as I have been the last weeks, I'm always looking at shadow forms, which are really kind of easy, clear things to hold on to and to help understand what's happening in a reference or with your model that you're looking at. So there's a interesting dark shadow form here, and there's a much softer shadow over here with this soft edge, and here the hard edge of the jaw against the hair, and then awesome things happening with the shadows in the background. It's just a super interesting photo, so this will be fun to work with. Let's see how we go. So I was wondering if I should do this live, in a live stream, because I think it's pretty I know there's a lot of things I can see in there that I could spend a lot of time on, and we'll just see how we go. We're doing it together. We're in this together, and it's all good. Just draw and have fun. Nikira, looks difficult. Yeah, it does look difficult, but it's it's really good to see. Okay, so how can I simplify things? I've got something super complicated that I'm looking at, but how can I just reduce it into something that I can understand? And a really good trick when looking at light and shadow is to squint, which is like your eyelash filter, which simplifies light and shadow shapes. So that's how I'll be starting. I'll be squinting, looking at those shadow forms, and just seeing, find my way around. So yeah, good luck, have fun, and let's see how we go with this portrait of Sawyer today. Have my fresh rose petals over here, ink, some water in case I need it, paper towel, and my newly cut elder branch pen, which I just think is a really nice, cool pen that I've made today. All right. I'll start with this eye. I was doing tests with this rose ink today. I had to reduce it quite a bit because it was not very dark, and it's good to have an intense kind of saturation to start with, and if need be you can water it down. And I had some really fun just testing out this ink, because it was interesting the kind of quality of it, just as from application to the paper to when it dried, it really changed colour and kind of changed intensity. It's quite like a dark reddish colour now, and as it dries, I think if it does what it did this afternoon, it will be more purple. So it's really, really interesting just watching what the ink does. Hello Elaine from South Africa, great to have you here. I've seen that there are a couple of people from our Tuesday night drawing groups. It's so cool hanging out and drawing together with you, and if anyone else wants to come and draw with us on Tuesday nights, check out my Instagram. We just hang out and draw for 2 hours, draw each other, and it's so much fun. So it started as a local thing earlier this year in Göttingen, where I live, and since Corona lockdown has become very international and super cool, where we do really lots of timed quick portraits, and it's such good practice. And that's like my social life at the moment. Apart from hanging out with my kids, I every Tuesday hang out and draw with people on Zoom. It's so worth it, says Elaine. It is so cool. It's interesting just noting the tilt of Sawyer's head here. Sometimes I've certainly had a tendency when I draw things, I kind of start leveling it out, like straightening things up. And it's just good to be conscious that that's not how the head looks. So the idea of looking at the shapes as they are rather than how your mind thinks they should be is a really good kind of habit to get into. And I wouldn't totally straighten her head, but there may just be a tendency to level things out in a way that they aren't on the picture. There's a cool, and I like to anchor from different points on the face. And here just seeing from the corner of the eye across to this angle at the kind of tip of the nose. For me, I just noticed some kind of connection between that point here and that here. And as like drawing in this way, it's cool to kind of anchor off from different places and to compare things, line things up, and just constantly kind of being comparing and measuring things and seeing how you can use other details that you've already drawn to be a kind of orientation and a guide for where you want to place your marks. And here's cool with this big flat, this is like, I don't know, almost a centimetre wide, can really just flood in these big shadow areas, which is cool. Pardon me, I'm going to have a drink. Cindy, I would definitely be continuing the Tuesday sessions after the pandemic ends. It's so cool. And it's grown into a really cool group. And yeah, I used to do it live, and I live in a fairly small city in central Germany, and I'd have super irregular attendance. Some people would be there every weekend or every Tuesday, and people just come whenever they feel like it, which is totally the point. There's no obligation, it's just like casual fun drawing together. But it's grown with this international flair that we now have. It's grown into something really beautiful throughout the course of the pandemic. There's just so many people joining from so many places, and especially in this time where we don't get to hang out with people so much. It's just so cool. Like, some people are in their living rooms and a cat walks across the desk and in front of the camera, and you just see, I don't know, get a glimpse into people's lives. That it's just really lovely, and it's super good drawing practice. So it's good in so many ways. I'll try to notice your questions as I'm drawing. But it's kind of a mix between paying attention to what's on the paper and hearing and looking up to your questions. So you're welcome, Cindy. John, bonjour. Hello, Dasha in London. So it's these rose petals have just been, I've been collecting them over the course of the last 2 weeks, and at the moment, I know there's been some rain and it's getting really warm, and there's just so many flowers. It's incredible. So I get pretty excited seeing all of the roses growing everywhere. Yesterday morning I was with Holly, she's 1.5, and we were collecting petals together. It was nice. So the top lip is like, it's interesting because it's totally part of the shadow shape on what we're seeing as the right side of the face. So this thing, like when you squint down just to see the way the shapes are kind of blurring and becoming kind of the big abstract shadow side of things. It gets pretty soft and blurry, the distinction between there, but it's definitely like a strong shadow shape. Also maybe you can just totally, there's this nice little highlight, kind of the lip is wrapping around, and on the right side within the shadow there's this last little kind of highlight bit I noticed when I looked with some attention to this picture. So it's nice little moments like that to capture special little highlights or shadows. So I'm going to go around and fill in this shadow area, and hopefully within the time we have it will dry a bit, and I'll be able to kind of do some more on top of it. So working with ink in this way, it's good to have time to let things dry. but sometimes it's also good just to get into it and see what happens. Oh, thank you, Dasha. I'm glad you like my style. Clive. Yeah, okay. This is an interesting question for the ink making side of things. So different petals behave really differently. I'm not sure if there are particular rules, different flowers belonging to different families. But like the poppy petals that I was using last week, all you need to do is put them in cold water and the pigment flows out so fast. And these ones, these rose petals, I was just going to put them in water, but then in cold water, and I did, but not much was happening. And then I just put them on a super low heat, and then the pigment came out of the petals really fast. And I wouldn't want to boil them, like heat them, but don't necessarily boil them. Because it's worth trying things out, you know. I haven't tried everything. It could be interesting to boil it, but some plants are sensitive to temperature, and so if you heat them, you may get a nice result. But with some plants, if you boil them, you'll kind of kill the color. But there are some things like the more woody things, acorns and tree bark. You can boil those. They really need to cook for a long time. And also a mix of like letting things come to the boil and then letting them steep for a while. And I have some pine cones that I've been steeping for a couple of days now, and like once a day I'll just kind of heat them up and then just let them sit for the rest of the day. Yeah, and I'll just kind of see how that works out. So yeah, I like to try things without heating first, because if I don't have to kind of expend any extra energy to extract the pigment, then awesome. But some things don't work so well that way. And I don't know if it was because it came from a different bush, but there was one berry that I picked and I got two totally different colours. Like one was really blue and one time it was more red. And I'm not sure if that's because one I cooked from dried berries and the other one was just pressed fresh berries. So try different things out and you might have some super interesting, surprising results. So as I've been talking about ink here, I'm just kind of filling in this shadow side of the face here, just making these big thick marks with the broad edge that are gonna, just kind of setting up the shadow side of the face for me. Oh, Nina gets a rash from pinecone sap. That's unfortunate. It smells so good. It smells like a sauna. It's the rose petals smell so good. Although now I think it doesn't have the same freshness that it did. But as I was cooking the pine cones, the whole house just smelled like a sauna. It had a really nice smell. So nice if you're not allergic to it, I guess. So we have this really hard edge on the hairline over here, and on the other side it becomes a really soft, almost like really indistinct edge until we get back around here. So I may just leave it like that for now, because there's this really soft edge, and at the moment I want to put down my, block in the harder, clear shapes and shadows. Have I missed any other interesting questions? Green ink from a leaf it may be green, because, you know, leaves look green and amazing, but just like in autumn, in the fall, they will lose their greenness and turn brown. There's a green ink. I have an amazing book called Make Ink by Jason Logan, and he has this really nice green ink, but it's from a berry that doesn't grow here. You can turn this rose petal ink green with baking soda, but it's a green that will likely change colour. So I am yet to make a really reliable, lasting green ink, but when the day comes, I will definitely let you all know about it. So yeah, there are things like an intense kind of green. There's kind of, with nettle, you can get like a really dark green. I read someone refer to it as a chocolatey green, which I thought was a really nice description, a really dark green colour. So nettles. Are there any other questions? I think it's looking pretty good. Alberta asked, the one side of her face, is it in shadow or not? So yeah, the side that I've left, it has this mid-tone. It's definitely like a shadow side, but maybe, yeah, we'll see how we tackle that. Because I don't want to block it in like I did here, otherwise it's just going to look like she has a full-on beard, I think. But we'll see. We'll see what happens when we get to it. So yeah, we have a lot of interesting challenges, I think, in this piece. It's good to challenge ourselves. Jen Yvonne, thank you, and I'm glad you're enjoying it. Yeah, so I just love drawing things that have really strong shadow shapes. It's, you know, it creates form in such a kind of clear, expressive way. Like if this was frontally lit image, it would be much harder to kind of find a way around, or if it just kind of had like an even lighting setup. But with this clear shadow form, it makes it, yeah, more accessible to draw for me. So I like to have lots of nice shadow shapes. And as we're drawing, it's just, you look at things and see how you can, when you're drawing from observation, to just see how you can kind of reduce things into abstract shapes, and thinking about, you know, don't think about individual strands of hair, just kind of, with hair, think about this dark block of shadow shape, and here's this light highlight shape, and here, and then here it's just like this big blocky shape. And if you're, yeah, just kind of breaking things down into abstract shapes, it becomes, you simplify it in your own mind, I guess, and it makes it easier to draw, less intimidating. Because yeah, I looked at this and thought this is pretty challenging, and there's so many cool things happening, and I don't know, there definitely would have been phases where there's no way I would have attempted to do this live. But then I was like, you know, I'm telling people to loosen up, and it's, you know, you do it, you just draw, and it's all good. So, you know, why not just try something challenging here with you all? And it's basically just a bunch of shapes. So if we sit here and drawing a bunch of shapes together, we'll be all right. Hi, Andy. Nice to have you here. Kids in bed? Stina, I've never used olive oil to protect the pens. It's an interesting idea. It would stop the pens from soaking up so much ink, because but then maybe they wouldn't hold as much ink when we want to draw with them as well. But it's worth trying out. That could be cool. I used olive oil to protect my wooden flutes that I used to make from elder branches. Retro Samson. What do you mean? Can you find me in South America? Or what do you mean? What do you want to find in South America? So Retro Samson, just clarify that. You may not be able to find me in South America, as I am in central Germany. I'm originally from South Australia. So this is cool. You can just like start filling this space, kind of worked around, and it's just, it's pretty, looking at it like this looks a bit random really. But it's just, so just fill this in now. And I'm using the pen like a paintbrush really, just to drag a lot of ink and pigment over that space. And once the kind of main body of the hair shape is set up, and once it dries a little bit, we've still got half an hour. So once it dries, you can go in and start adding some individual strands and cool bits of like loose strands of hair, which just turns this weird blob of ink into. I don't even have to wait for it to dry. We can put some in now. I love just the flying strands of hair. And that's something on the topic of edge. That's the edge control. That's something that really breaks up an edge. So if we have a really solid, clear edge, like here at the edge of the head, as opposed to here on the outside edge of the hair, and then have these loose kind of individual strands, just those extra lines is something that's going to break up and diversify the feeling of that edge. And there's other things happening, like the edge within here. So it's interesting just working with one or two values, basically, that of the paper and that of the ink. How can you express some of the subtlety that's happening in those edges just with lines and the way you apply the ink? So some places we could go in with a wet brush and just blur it, but I want to try and see what I can achieve with just the pen today. And yeah, so breaking up the edge or achieving a different edge just by kind of adding different lines, and it just sets up a bit of a visual contrast to the solid blocks of ink, I guess. Just reading some questions. So if you want me to answer something, now could be the time. Beata's really enjoying it. I'm glad. Me too. Samson, I'm still not sure about your question. Maybe you can hear my crying baby next door. It's time for her to go to bed. So Sketchy says, if you want to learn more from me, join up to the Ink Naturally course. It's super fun, and lots of people from all over the world doing all this amazing natural ink work. It's so cool. It can be difficult laying down enough ink with the pen if it's... oops, I'm replying to Stefan's statement here. Once you put the ink down, if you're then dragging it out, like just a single line, like and put an example over here. Where are we going to need a line? So if you just draw a line, it will dry and become really intense, but as you start pulling and dragging and stretching out that ink, then You can see here that's just, it has nowhere near the intensity of the single line. So that's something when you have more time that you can layer things up, and I think the layering of the ink becomes really, has a really beautiful quality as well. But if you're drawing in one sitting, then it's helpful to have a really intense colour to work with. Yeah, the highlight at the bottom of the chin. Oh, there's so many nice subtle things happening with the lighting in here. It's so cool. This highlight here, and I've just kind of, I don't know, left a little bit here to imply that kind of jawline here. And there's so many cool highlights. That little bit at the edge of the lip, I like. Kind of mirrored over here in shadow by the upturned corner of the mouth, and such an amazing photo. Do you need a different, it's not alder, it's elder, like elderberry. If you can clean your pens, put it in water, clean it. You don't need a different one for each ink, but I have so many pens, and if I'm working with a lot of different inks in the same drawing, I will definitely use different pens, because some of them may have, they have different acidities or alkalinity, and they start interfering with each other. So it's good to have a clean pen, like dedicated to each ink in one sitting. But then you can clean them and use them for other ones after. Sketchy says we have over 500 students in the Ink Naturally course right now. That's so cool. Awesome. Good question. No, I haven't done watercolor for a while. When I started painting, watercolor was my medium, and so I'm using my watercolor brushes when I do brushwork in ink, and I just make sure I clean them, and I just clean them with soap, the same soap I'd use to wash my hands, and make sure you get all the soap out afterwards, because the soap will affect the ink as well. So I think if you really take care and clean your tools, I think it's fine. It's not like using watercolor and oil brushes, I guess. Like, it's pretty incompatible. But yeah, I use all my brushes for whatever I need them for at any given moment, I guess. Okay, is it back? Sound back now? The sound is hopefully back now. It's telling me it's back. Is the sound back now? I don't know how much of a delay I have. And it says yes. Good. Hopefully I didn't say anything important just now. But my sound's back, yeah? Yes, 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 yes. Oh, thank you. It's so good that you're all here telling me when things go wrong. It's back. Thank you, Jordan. Thank you, everybody. My support crew, you're all out there to let me know what's going on. How's the drawing going? What am I not seeing here? You can all tell me how this looks. I think I just noticed I'm like way too broad out here on the side, but that's okay. I've got space to come back in. So maybe just answering questions and talking while drawing. Sometimes some pretty weird things happen. But this is nice. I have this opportunity here to bring this back in. So what was the last thing I said before the sound cut out? I think I was talking about dropping in more pigment into the shadow. So in response to Stefan's question or statement about how he can't achieve the kind of darkness and saturation he wants with the ink, this is what I do to get darker shadow shapes. It also takes a lot longer to dry. So if you can, it's a good basis to start with a really dark ink. So you can layer it up and you can drop more pigment in, but it's good to start dark because then you can always add water and change things. So it's good that it's all good. Sounds good. Drawing good. Cool. It was cool how you all like just lit up and everyone was letting me know what's going on. So I asked earlier, there was some cool homemade inks people are using, beet and blueberry. Is there anyone else now watching who has some other cool inks that they're using? Okay, so this is it's all taking on form. I was able to rescue that edge a bit. I think I'm still a bit broader than what's going on over here. Maybe it would help to put in a bit of that to just loosely indicate this other shadow shape here without getting too heavy with it. Whoa, that's too much. Nikira's using Signum. What's Signum? Is it a flower? I guess so. Geranium, Lois, that's lovely. I made a really nice red gerbera ink. Peggy's using Iris. Oh, red cabbage is so good. Cranberry, cool. Turmeric, it's such an intense, amazing color, and it's so good to eat. Ink from orange zest. Yeah, that's interesting because orange zest is really oily. If you've ever squeezed an orange peel into a candle, it shoots out fire. It's amazing. There's just so much oil, and that's why it smells and tastes so intense and amazing. So it would be interesting having that oil in the ink, I guess. Maybe that's why it's sticky. But that's cool. Cool that you're all, or some of you, trying out making inks, and so much fun. I think there's just having this really clear, strong shadow shape on the right side of the face is just, it's like, I don't know, an anchor or a safety net. It's just such a clear shape that it's, I feel like it's holding it all together. And now just adding some more definition with the shadow shape on this side. It's, yeah, I just love that kind of thing, the way these shapes make form for us. And Sawyer has, she said she's really looking forward to seeing what people are going to draw. So if you're on Sketchy, then you can, the link to the reference photo is below the live stream, so you can follow that link, upload your work to Sawyer's, like attach it to Sawyer's profile, and at SawyerW on Instagram. She's looking forward to seeing what everyone creates. So am I. So tag Sawyer, tag Sketchy, tag me, and we'll all see the cool work that you're doing. And it's just cool that you're doing the work. You know, there's no value judgments as to what's cool and what's not. It's all cool. If you're doing it, it's cool. Okay, this is relevant to what's happening right now. So I didn't boil the rose petals. I soaked them, and I soaked them for like 8 hours, and there was just a very faint, pale pink color that I got from it. So that was just with cold water. And then I thought, oh, I actually want to do a live stream with this ink, so I can't just leave it for a week to let the color come out. And then I just put it on the oven on a super low heat, and like just on the lowest setting, and as soon as the water was warm, the pigment just flowed out of the petals. So it's not boiled, but it was warm water. Thanks for asking. Haha, Stina, that's a good question. I'm totally looking forward to acorns. Acorns is like a staple ingredient. That's my staple food for ink making. But what else? What else? There are really cool mushrooms. Mushroom ink is really stinky because it's just like, it decomposes and it smells crazy. But shaggy mane ink cap, or Tintlinger in German, is such an incredible mushroom. Oh, it just has such a cool form. It comes out of the ground and turns into a parasol, and it just drips inky, slimy spores. I love ink cap mushrooms. They're so cool. What else is good? Malve, or mallow, was like a late summer flower. So nice. It has such an intense dark purple color, and does super cool things with modifiers. So you can get like a cool green from it. Back to that question, who was it that asked about greens? Malva, and baking soda has a nice green. But I just have it in a sketchbook. So it's the question of oxidization as well. If here it was, spiritually you just being X. Mallow petals and baking soda will make green. So those are some of the things I'm looking forward to. Jenny is using blueberry ink. Excellent. Cool. It's totally fine to be behind on the classwork. You go at your own pace and just have an awesome time doing it. When is tree sap ready in Germany? I think today it's rained so much, here at least, and the trees, and now like the cherries are starting to turn red, and so as the trees are pumping all that water and sap through the tree, it just starts to erupt from the branches in some places. I have some here. So if there are little wounds on the trees, I'll show it here. So this is a piece of cherry sap. So this is an awesome binder. It just comes out of cherry trees. This is also cherry sap. And this was just on the side of a tree. And the tree just pushes it out. So the tree will have little wounds that it tries to fill with the cherry sap, so it's not so vulnerable to mold and illness and stuff. So it's important not to take it after summer, like heading into autumn and winter. It needs to protect itself. So don't take too much. Always, I think it's important to take from abundance and not to do anything that's going to have a negative impact on the world that we live in, the trees and the animals that use the trees as shelter and food. It's good to take care of them, and they'll take care of us. But I would think in the coming weeks, I imagine there's going to be cherry sap that will be ready. I think last year in August I got a lot. So from now on, Beata, yeah, the blueberry and baking soda makes green. And I'm just looking on the wall of a piece that I did like 2 weeks ago. It still looks really green, and it's been in the sun, oxidizing, and so far it still looks nice and green. But part of what I enjoy about the natural inks is just watching the way they change over time as well. So it's just an interesting journey of discovery, like to find out, okay, what's going to be a really good black, or what maybe fades and becomes a different color, or what's a good green. Okay, that green fades and turns a bit yellow. Like I made a red cabbage with baking soda. It had this incredible green, but a couple months later it was more of a like mustardy yellow color. So it still kind of retained its value, like how dark it was. So the picture still works, but it no longer had the green that it once did. So I really look forward to one day being able to make a green that has a bit of a lifespan. Okay, Deborah asked about the getting the sap into the ink. So the cool thing about cherry sap, as opposed to pine sap and acacia sap, is that it's water soluble. So if I just dropped this into my ink, so this I put gum arabic in this rose petal ink, but I prefer to use cherry sap because I can harvest it myself, forage it, and I could just drop that in the ink, and over the course of a week it would just dissolve, and that would become the binder for the ink. So you can either just drop it straight into the ink and experiment with different amounts. I don't know what the perfect amount is. Like, I wouldn't use that much for a little jar. I think in all aspects of this ink making, for me, I think it's fun just to experiment with different quantities and different materials, and so it just dissolves in water, which is pretty awesome with the sap. Hello, Frau Pauli, nice to have you here. A Göttingen local, Frau Pauli, and awesome musician. Henry just logged in. I'm not sure who that is, but we are drawing Sawyer W, Sawyer W. You can find her on Instagram. Tag your drawings of her. Oh, that's nice. So sad that the cherry tree is dying, but yeah, you'll be able to. You can only harvest sap if there's already sap coming out. There's no way to extract it, so the sap already needs to be coming out. But you'll be able to use the bark to make cherry tree bark, cherry bark ink, and you can make ink from the roots. You'll be able to make pens from it. So that would be nice to take that cherry tree and extend its life through the beautiful things that you create with it. Okay, I'm Stina asked if I can zoom out. I'm not going to go out any further than this. It's a bit tricky for me to zoom out here. I thought I had a bit of a different setup. I don't know why, but I won't go any further down here. So I won't zoom out. Oh, we're nearly done for today. So I was thinking, yeah, this needs to be darker. Might just drag some of that in there. And I was wondering, okay, this shadow side, what am I going to do here? So I often like to use vertical hatching to just give a different kind of intensity to shading, or just any hatching, just to kind of soften an edge. So maybe we'll just spend the last moment getting a little bit of variation on the edge quality that we have here. So I just kind of briefly indicated that was a bit too much ink here, but this was so I call it vertical hatching because the face is tilted. It's going to be slanted hatching. And I didn't draw a line, which I often do at this edge, because I just wanted to kind of indicate it. If I had put a line down, it would have created a harder edge, and I wanted to have this kind of open edge because it's quite a soft kind of edge in the photo. So this is like my mid-tone just by doing vertical hatching, and maybe it's blobbing up a bit. I get some strange things happening, but I think the strange things happen sometimes add some kind of interesting chaotic element that I maybe wouldn't have done. Like that blob right there. What's that about? Let's see if I can lift some of that. Okay, paper towel is like your eraser. This ink permanent, but yeah, just took out a couple of those blobs that were a bit much. So when I'm doing these are the same marks I made with this pen up here, totally big, thick marks. And here I'm just I've tilted the pen over. I'm using the back side on the point. So it's just become like a fine tip rather than a broad edge. So this entire portrait has been done with the same carved stick. And I'm just a huge fan of the kind of line variation, the different kind of marks we can make just with such a simple tool. So everything that's on the paper here, I don't know exactly the history of the paper, but it all just came from where I live. The rose petals I would see as I ride my bike, and from a dying branch of an elder tree. Well, this branch was dead, the tree's still alive. But I just love knowing where my art supplies came from, knowing the plants, knowing that I collected flower petals with my beautiful daughter, and that she loved watching the buzzing bees that were pollinating the roses. And that's now, that time we shared collecting these rose petals together is now part of this portrait. For me, at least. I know that was the story of creating the supplies, and then it becomes part of the story of the art that I make with this ink. And for all of you who are making ink, it's the same, that you find something, create something, whether you find it in the fridge or in the compost, and create something beautiful with it. It's a pretty special thing to do. So that was 5 minutes of drawing some lines, which I think now just gave a really clear, nice kind of second value to that shadow side of the face. And you can do beautiful, amazing detailed hatching where you really follow the form of the face. But I just like to keep it simple and stylized. I think it's a really graphic approach to shading. And yeah, it's kind of something that I like. So feel free to try it out. And you can, anything that you kind of learn, to feel totally free to just try things. If you like it, you can, make it yours. If you realize, oh, that's not for me, then that's fine. But it's just so cool to try things out. And yeah, I think that's it for today. So Sketchy says we do live artist sessions almost every week. So I'm here every Sunday. There'll be a time change after June, but I'll let you know about that. So yeah, subscribe to the Sketchy YouTube channel. Follow and tag me on Instagram with your posts that you do. You can hashtag ink naturally and hashtag drawing with Dylan. And I'm really excited to see what everyone's going to do based on this wonderful photo of Sawyer. So thank you all for being here and drawing together. Are there any portraits? Portraits, there are lots of portraits. Any questions relating to portraits or ink? Just before we sign out, this would be a moment to answer some more questions. So thank you, Cindy. Thank you, Jenny. Thank you, Carol. I'm glad you all enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a lot too. It's so cool to be able to sit here and share with you in this way. Thank you, Sketchy. Yeah, it was my pleasure to be here and draw with and for you. Thank you to all of you, and have a wonderful day, evening, week. If you're in the Ink Naturally class, then I look forward to seeing your edge control work this week. The first lesson has already been is live, I saw just before I started here. So if you would like to just keep painting with your natural inks, then you can go to the next lesson. And if you're not signed up yet, then sign up, and it's lots of fun. And yeah, Stina, come Tuesdays, come draw with us. Live portrait sessions, totally fun. And all the info will be up in my Instagram with the live drawing sessions. Cool. Jacked up her face. That's okay. You know, it's great that you just did it. And if you want to, you could just try again, or just own it, and then just keep going. That's great, Shannon. Nikira, Jill, David, thank you all. Thanks for being here, and take care of each other. And we'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.